Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum viewers. Today we are discussing the disengagement on Chinese terms with India and the Ladakh crisis. And we are joined by Dr. Tugul Yabi. He's a dean at NERST. Sir, Assalamu alaikum, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Walaikum assalam, Ahmad Saab. Thank you for inviting me.
Sir, sir, in this disengagement talks, there are two. I would say there are two things that are not in coming in understanding of people. What are first is the Chinese claim line, what they are claiming, and second is the bigger picture the Chinese are looking at. These two things are still not clear. And my first question here from you would be the Chinese claim line. Uh, as I have established a hypothesis, I would like you to comment on this. The hypothesis is that the Chinese claim line is the territory of Qing dynasty that was at the time of First Opium War. Their claim line territory is that. How would you agree with me, or how would you comment on this, sir?
Each country has a claim to its border. And sometimes when there is some disagreement, the two countries or three countries or four countries try to resolve it. And they physically demarcate their borders by putting border pillars over there. And they also mark the general alignment on the maps. And these maps are signed and they are held as repository with each country. And they then abide by these border lines. We all know that there were no nation states before the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. And the nation state is very much a concept which is embedded in European history. There have been large empires, which include the Mughal Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the other empires before them, and even the Mongols for a considerable period of time ruled large swaths of land. So they had empires, and they had countries, or they had smaller fiefdoms or kingdoms who were paying tribute to them. So there were no hard and fast territorial claims. They just read out the name of the overall king in the Friday sermon. For example, that was the norm in the Muslim world, that if they were paying tribute to the caliph sitting in Konya or Istanbul, then they would read out his name. If they were paying tribute to the king sitting in Delhi, they would be taking his name and paying him tribute, sending in money, annual revenues to him. And this was the general procedure. But once the nation states came into being, the hard and fast boundaries came into being. So there are still large tracts of lands which are undemarcated, or even if they are demarcated, they are contested. So in case of China and India, since both are old countries, they have different claim lines, and there was an area which was demarcated by the British, which is called the McMahon line. But the Chinese do not agree to it. So this is a generally ill-defined area, and we also know that it's very difficult to actually define borders in difficult hilly terrains, or this is the same case which Pakistan and India are faced with in Siachen. Our interpretation of the line generally going north from NJ 9842 is different from what the Indians believe. So when such a situation comes into being, it's good to actually sit down and demarcate your borders. China has been able to settle the border issues with a number of countries, including Pakistan. Perhaps you are not aware that Pakistan actually has a treaty with China, People's Republic of China, in which they have physically demarcated the border. Physically, by physically, I mean that they have agreed that this is your area and this is our area. And Pakistan actually ceded some territory to them in order to have good neighborly relations. Now with India and China, they have a history of uh, border disputes. We know very well that in 1962, Nehru followed a policy, forward policy of occupying land which the Chinese thought was theirs. So they went into the Chinese territory. The Chinese warned them a number of times. They did not listen to them. And then the Chinese retaliated, and then actually they rolled into Assam, and exactly following the pattern of the current tension, following the uh, standoff in Galwan Valley, they returned. They just wanted to show India a lesson. They wanted to give them a lesson. So the Chinese have their claims, the Indians have their claims. It would be best in the interest of both countries to resolve this issue, to sit down on the table and make a line. They call it line of actual control, in which they have varying claims. In case of Pakistan and India, we call it a line of control, where we know exactly where the alignment of this disputed territory is. We do not call it international border, because in our according to our narrative, this is disputed territory. Pakistan and India also have a working boundary, where we think that Jammu is a disputed state. So our line with Sialkot is can be treated as international border, but not the other side, which is Jammu. So we call it a working boundary. And then we have the international border. So China and India have a dispute, and disputes have been resolved. If it is not resolved, there will be further conflagration in the future, and things will keep happening. That is how I understand this issue.
Sir,
I hope
I would like to comment on this, but as Chinese scholars doesn't seem agree with the idea of nation state system. They give a parallel idea as civilization nation state system. It is prevailing, and these days the Chinese scholars are very much in talk with this. And they, if you see, if you go through the letters between Premier Zhou Enlai and Prime Minister Nehru, the Zhou Enlai has used a word so-called McMahon line. They have never accepted McMahon line as a border or a demarcation line between two countries. And if you see the international agreements, Chinese have agreement that an understanding that first you will resolve India and Pakistan's Kashmir dispute, and then we will deal with the country that will actually control the Ladakh, because they have never accepted Ladakh as a border with China. Sorry, as a border with India.
true, the Chinese may be having a civilizational aspect to it. Uh, but border claims are always very difficult to resolve unless there is political will to do so. Uh, we have a long outstanding dispute with not only India, we have a dispute. We think it's a closed issue, but the Afghans usually from time to time bring up the issue of Durand Line. We feel that as successor state to former British Empire, this is a resolved issue. But it's physically demarcated, and now we are fencing it also. Uh, so what I'm trying to say is that border issues need resolution. It needs some kind of give and take. If India and China want to have a peaceful border, they should resolve it. But there are national egos involved, you see. And I think that sometimes actually the Americans instigate the Indians to keep on their conflict with China alive, because they want to put pressure on China. They are conducting military drills in the South China Seas, and they find this as a convenient pressure point. Is that these issues need to be resolved, but I think that there are international actors who do not want this issue to be resolved. One could be that the two countries can continue patrolling, which they have resumed, and they should have regular flag meetings between the commanders on the ground, because this is an inhospitable area. Uh, It's hardly anything grows there. But all border disputes like this should be resolved. Pakistan-India dispute should be resolved. There is a huge potential of actually resolving these
Sir,
fractured issues.
sir, I have in touch with the Chinese scholars, and they say actually Indians have betrayed them. They have backstabbed them by coming in agreement with America, because they have an understanding after the 1993 agreement onward. There were six agreements, if I'm not wrong. They have an understanding that we won't conspire behind each others about these situations, and won't involve with a in a nature of strategic competition. And as China, as sorry, in the State Department documents, United States changed the status of Asia Pacific to Indo Pacific, and this instigated a tension between them. And after the edit in 2017 and 18, China bought armies in Tibet region, and they created a ecosystem there, a military ecosystem, and Indians lack in that, and they have the advantage in that area. So Chinese are actually saying that India has betrayed us, and so we have authorized, we have the authority, and we have the legal advantage over India after the 5th August 2019 action to revoking the Article 370 and 35A. How would you make sense of this all happenings?
True, there is a lot of mistrust between China and India. We have the 1962 incident in which the Indian Army actually encroached into territories which China felt it was there, and despite a lot of warnings, they did not go back, and the Chinese army had to retaliate. So India has been turning back on international agreements. What they did in Kashmir by revoking Article 370 and 35A are also very much a proof of how India can go back on promises and agreements. So betrayal is nothing new with India. India can betray you. That is their, I think, trait which is very much part of their national psyche or strategic culture. So yes, true. The Chinese have fears, they have suspicions. The Indians have not proven to be true neighbors with whom you could live in peace. We also know that India cannot be trusted. India can, in our case, they don't have to stab you in the back. They can attack you from the front, or they can attack you internally. We know that they have created a lot of internal problems of Pakistan. The case of Commander Kulbhushan Yadav is quite evident. It proves that the Indians can create problems on the internal as well as external front. They are suppressing the Kashmiris. So yes, true, you're right. The Chinese have genuine worries about India. I think.
Sir, moving further, to the best of the news that are coming, and to the best of my knowledge, about the disengagement agreement between China and India, that both the forces will go back almost 2 kilometers behind their present day position. So in this situation, Chinese are actually occupying the 95% of the area they have captured in this 2 months confrontation. So how you see the implication of this 95% area would be on the future policies of our future foreign relations between India and China?
China has taken the area and they will not give it back to them. They've sanitized the area, and if they go back 2 kilometers, it hardly makes any difference. And in these days of modern surveillance, when you have satellites in orbit which are constantly monitoring a certain area, there are satellites which are in geosynchronous orbit which are constantly watching any kind of movement. So I don't think China is in a bad position. They have occupied the area. They might have gone back 2 kilometers. It hardly makes any difference. Patrolling is going to take place. And I think for all practical purposes, the Indians have lost the area. Had they not misbehaved, as you have said, that had they not stabbed the Chinese in the back, the status quo would have continued. But since they are prone to these activities, since they are an expansionist state, They've been calling China an expansionist state. China said, we are not an expansionist state, you are an expansionist state. So India very much thinks, feels that they are a growing power and they can take liberties with uh, all the neighbors in the surrounding areas. So with Pakistan, okay, they can take liberties to a certain extent. They know their thresholds in case of Pakistan. Their aircraft have been down, their pilot has been captured, they've been given a bloody nose. But look at the way they behave with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka or Maldives. This kind of attitude they cannot show to the Chinese. So this is all that I have to say. I think we are at the end of our meeting, Ahmad sir.
So, so thank you for summing this up. But my last question would be the Chinese objectives are unclear. They don't communicate their objectives to people others because they have very restricted media policy and communication policy. How you see what are the Chinese bigger aim in the South Asia? Because no one wants a war.
Chinese objectives are very clear. They want to become a superpower by year 2049, and they do not want wars with anybody, and not with the United States of America, not with India. At least that's not the plan, the current plan. So they want to grow economically, and that is why they have this Belt Road Initiative, with which they want to connect Asia with Europe and Africa, and whatever is left of the world, and therefore they want this CPEC, a flagship project, to succeed. I do not think they want war with India at all.
Sir, I see. I'm seeing sir. Sorry to interrupt you here. I'm seeing a silence. I'm witnessing a silence from Indian counterparts because on the agreements that China recently signed in Azad Kashmir, they have not commented on that, and even it's not in the Indian news that Chinese are doing projects in Azad Kashmir. So how you see that? Does China acknowledge Chinese authority over the region or Chinese superiority over them, or have they accepted that they are not they can't compete with China, and they have accepted that China has a authority and China has a legal standing on the issue?
Yes, India will not accept China's growth. They will not accept CPEC. CPEC has been maligned by India and also by the United States of America. For Pakistan and China, it's important that CPEC should succeed. And this June 15 incident is a good way of telling the Indians to behave themselves. So otherwise, they were talking about severing the CPEC, talking about the illegality, so to speak, not from our side. They claim that the Amir Bhasha Dam was illegal, that KKH was in disputed territory, but I think that is put paid to the Indian claims. And I think, hopefully, for some time they will behave themselves. Meanwhile, all our projects will go on ahead in full speed and they will be completed, inshallah. So the Indians understand that they cannot fight China and Pakistan simultaneously. They can hope to become a hegemon in this area, but their hegemony is going to be strongly contested both by China and Pakistan. And if China and Pakistan stand firm, I do not think that they can harm our interests. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you, sir.